Hello, this is a video recording of lesson 9.1 from the GoMath workbook. This lesson is relating tenths and decimals. How can you record tenths as fractions and decimals? We know how to do a tenth as a fraction. That's easy. We've been talking about that. 1/10. This is a tenth as a fraction. How can we now relate this as a decimal? A decimal, I am on page 495 in the Chapter 9 GoMath workbook. A decimal is a number with one or more digits to the right of the decimal point. You can write tenths and hundreds as fractions or decimals. So you would have numbers and then a decimal point and then numbers again. A lot of times when children see this type of thing, they think of money. And that is a really, really good relation to have in your mind. So if you are a student and you know anything about money, now is the time to put your money thinking hat on, because that is really going to help you in this process. Lesson 9.1 teaches two different strategies for relating and recording tenths as fractions and decimals. The first strategy is to use a model and a place value chart. And the second strategy is to use a number line. Now, in my classroom, my students know that I am giving them as many strategies as possible to put into their toolbox, and they get to choose whichever strategy they wish to figure out and solve a problem, whether that's an equation or, something like this. And so the first way they show you on page 495 is to use a model and a place value chart. And so if you were to have 7/10, you would shade 7/10 of the model right there in that little section. This is all relating back to a word problem. Ty is reading a book about metamorphic rocks. He has read 7/10 of the book. What decimal describes the part of the book Ty has read? So we have that fraction there. We have that 7/10 fraction. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to turn that in to a decimal. Now, if you had a model of 7/10, you would know how many spots of that to shade in. All of my students know this. There are 10 little lines there, 10 little, 10 little longs, 10 tens, and that makes one whole. So we know that 7/10 is going to be smaller than a whole. All fractions are, and decimals are. And so 7/10 of the model, we're going to color in 7 of those lines. And when we do that, that is going to show us that we have 7/10. And on the line there, you're going to write 7/10, just like this on that line, because we're talking about fractions and how do we write this as a fraction? Because if we can write it as a fraction, then we're going to turn around and learn how to write it as a decimal. Now, that's how you use the model. Now, when you relate that over to the place value chart, you all know that the first place in the place value chart is the ones place, right? Normally, that is the first place. Now, we have other places. We have, as you can see in your chart there, ones is your normal regular ones place. The ones place doesn't change. That's the same. Then you have your decimal point. Now you have tenths and hundredths. These are your two new place value sections that are to the right of the decimal point. Tenths and hundreds. And your decimal point always goes in between the ones and the tenths. Now, you have 0 ones, okay? Because you have 0 whole things. One thing is a whole thing. You do not have any whole things, so you have a 0 in the ones place. In this story, he has 7/10. 7/10. You guys have been saying that all along. Hope that this is reading to you as being easier than you thought it was going to be. What number are you going to put in the tenths box? A 7. You're going to put a 7 there. And then you're going to leave nothing in the hundredths box because you don't have any hundredths. You have nothing. There is nothing there to record. So you're going to write 0.7 on the right line And you're going to read this as 7/10. So you're going to write these words 7/10 on the read line. You write this as 0.7 and you read it as 7/10. That's it, guys. That is the long and the short of what I have for you today. I'm going to keep going, but I just want you to know that that's all it is. You just need to keep practicing that. The other way that they show how to do this is by using a number line. And we've used a number line with fractions, and the number line with decimals is the same exact thing. So we're going to draw our number line here, right? And up on the 0, for 0, we have 0/10. They have 0.0. There are 0/10. We have nothing. This is the 0 on the number line. There is nothing here. Next, we have, if you're looking at your book, you can tell me, 1/10. 1/10. We have a 1 in the tenths place. 0.1 is 1/10. And they're going to keep on going and going and going. 0.2. After that is going to come 0.3. They have divided this number line into 10 sections. They have 10 sections here. They're doing the same exact thing, except for using a model, they're using a number line. And so on that little blue line there, 0.7 names the same amount as 7/10. So I'll show you very quickly what your workbook should look like. You can easily fill in those decimal spots in those blue boxes with 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10. You do that by writing 0.2 or 3, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9. And then your answer, Ty reads 0.7 of the book, which is 7/10. Okay? That is the long and the short of it, guys. That really is the whole shebang. Now, let's turn over to page 496. On page 496, they're tossing a mixed number at you. This is no big deal. This really, truly is not a big deal. I do not want you to stress about this. This is not a big deal. Tara rode her bike 1 6/10 miles. 1 6/10 miles. Notice she rode it 1 whole mile and then this portion of a mile. What decimal describes how far she rode her bike? You have already written a fraction as a decimal. I'm reading right on page 496. You can also write a mixed number as a decimal. You can use a model or you can use a number line. Let's go over this real quick. Shade 1 6/10 of the model. You're going to shade 1 whole section of that, and then you're going to shade 6/10, and you're going to have 1 6/10. And this is what you're going to write on the blue line. 1 6/10. This is what you have here. Now, to write that as a decimal, 1 6/10 is 1 whole and 6/10. Think about it like this. Use the ones place to record wholes. That is one whole item, one thing. And if you have more than one thing, then you would just write how many things you have in there. But for right now, we have 1. So we have 1s, 10ths, hundredths, which we're not going to have any right now, but we're going to make this little chart. This is how we use a place value chart to record these things. We have 1 whole item, 1 whole mile, and then our decimal point, and then we have 6/10, and we're done. You're going to write 1.6, 1 6/10, and then you're going to, the way you say that is, I've said it 100 times already, 1 6/10. That's how this works. That's it. That's it. The way you can also do this using a number line. You can break up your number line into tenths, write your number line out to 1, or like they have already started their number line at 1, which is wise. They've already started, they have 1.0. they have 1 and 0 tenths. Then they're going to build that out. My board's not long enough to make it all the way out, but they're going to build that out. And so as you build it out, now you have 1 tenth. Now you have 2 tenths. You're going to build all the way out, and you can write this in a fraction and you can write this in a decimal. You guys know how to, this is easy peasy stuff, okay? Here's what your workbook page can look like at the end when you're done. You can screenshot me right now and so that you have this. But this is what we have here. This is how you do this. This is how you accomplish these things. If you have questions, let me know. You guys are doing a great job. Go to the 9.1 practice section in your Think Central online, and that will give you more practice on this. There are step-by-step instructions. There's examples you can see. You can check your own answers. Go practice these things, and that is lesson 9.1. That is all you need to know. You guys are doing a great job.